who is Natalie Golding. Director of Leadership at the Leadership College for Government, Natalie has been in post for the past 2 years, where she provides strategy and policy expertise. Through a variety of corporate roles and her work in Whitehall, Natalie has developed significant skills in strategy, people management, and critical thinking. Natalie, thank you so much for joining us online today.
Thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today about high-performing teams and what goes into making them, because I really do believe that they can be made and they're not just the preserve of a tiny elite. When I think about the work of the civil service, and particularly in my current role, I tend to circle back to the same question, which is, what can we do to make sure that we have the leaders and managers who help their teams to not just survive, but thrive? So whether that's in a full-on crisis or motivating people to deliver against business as usual, I think good leadership and management can really make or break high-performing teams. So like its predecessors, the Leadership College for Government works really closely with leaders across the civil service and the wider public sector, tackling some of the UK's toughest challenges, so that we can understand what high performance looks like and what makes it happen. As I've no doubt the people on this call have experienced themselves, these days, some of the most complex problems facing us need answers that go far beyond what any single individual or team can provide, whether that's hitting net zero by 2050 or levelling up to tackle social and economic inequalities in the UK. So that's why I've decided to talk about high performance systems. So when people, individuals, teams, organisations reach out of their traditional silos and work together to become something that's more than the sum of their parts and make really incredible things happen. So for example, the firefighters, police officers and the London Ambulance Service, who formed a single team that provided life-saving emergency medical services in the city when the pandemic hit. Or Newcastle's universities, health trusts and local council, all of which pooled their collective knowledge, expertise and resources to tackle health inequalities and improve life expectancy and well-being in the city, all by addressing their residents' needs in the round rather than trying to solve one problem or challenge at a time. Then, of course, there's the Courts and Tribunals Service, which used universities, theatres, hotels, even football stadiums to keep the justice system running. And of course, it would be remiss of me on this call not to mention the volunteers from the armed forces who stepped up to mentor colleagues and peers in the health sector. Obviously, I could go on. That was just a small glimpse of the high performance in response to COVID-19. All of the teams and their leaders found ways to tackle problems using their skills and experience outside their traditional remits. They worked in partnership, uniting around common goals to share their expertise and solve challenges that would have been beyond the realm of any single leader, team or sector. Now that's something that we want to normalise at the Leadership College for Government. I'll add that's the high performance, not the adversity. So bearing that in mind, I think effective, unconventional connections like the ones I've just mentioned are the product of high performance systems. I'm going to talk about one of those examples in a bit more detail to demonstrate why. And it's an example that some of you on this call may be familiar with, the Mentoring Through Crisis scheme, which saw defence staff mentoring NHS leaders on crisis management during the pandemic. So when COVID-19 arrived in the UK, I think we all know that the NHS was put under really high pressure. It's worth reminding ourselves of what March 2020 felt like, that sense of national crisis, the personal change, the loss, and in many cases, panic. The number of seriously ill people in hospitals surged. There were changes to care pathways, elective procedures were being suspended, everyone had to wear personal protective equipment, and tragically, as deaths rose, people lost friends, colleagues, and patients. So, as we all know, the country rallied around the NHS in its hour of need, and that includes the armed forces. The NHS approached the Centre for Army Leadership for help with the volume of stress-related cases that it was seeing in its senior teams. As you'll perhaps have experienced firsthand, defence staff are of course highly trained in dealing with leading crises and high pressure situations. So the Defence Leadership Centre was already delivering a course called Mentoring in Defence. Using that course as a jumping off point, the Academy created bespoke training materials as part of the new Mentoring Through Crisis scheme. 650 staff were involved in the scheme, from Sergeant Major to Lieutenant General. Among those was Brigadier Ian Mortimer, who mentored Cathy Farndon, an NHS non-executive director. Cathy spoke to us about how she had to manage new challenges to the whole health system, all while maintaining delivery in a deeply stressful crisis situation. So the mentoring scheme arrived at exactly the right time for her. Brigadier Mortimer shared examples of where he'd used his leadership skills in combat and crisis situations, together with other approaches used in military work. All of this provided Kathy with a completely different perspective on how to deal with her own situation. She gained confidence and a knowledge of techniques and methods to use in her work. As it happens, the experience was positive for the mentors too. They reported that their mentoring skill sets had been reinvigorated, but that they'd also gained improved self-awareness and valuable perspectives on how other government bodies dealt with the pandemic. Indeed, Brigadier Mortimer said that the experience was positive, beneficial, and rewarding for him. And while he was mentoring Kathy, he was also able to reflect on his own experiences and turn them into examples for her. But he in turn learned from Kathy's experiences, helping him to better understand some of the challenges that defence faces. The point is, all this extra resilience, these extra tools, that extra support, all of it helped the NHS deliver better services and save lives at a moment of crisis for the nation. That is the very real and immediate human impact of high-performance collaborative working. And I don't need to tell you that the pandemic clearly isn't the only thing that's required an unprecedented system-wide response in recent years. We've managed our exit from the EU and responded rapidly to the invasion of Ukraine. By itself, any one of these events would have been career-defining for any leader in our respective organisations. And yet here we are, dealing with them one after another over the past few years. These challenges will evolve and new ones will emerge. So the only guarantee is that we will continue to face huge, complex problems that can only be tackled successfully if we work effectively with people who can seem very different from us on paper. While we're no longer standing on a burning platform as we were in early 2020, preparing for the next pandemic, tackling climate change, exploiting the opportunities of global Britain at a time of heightened international uncertainty, all of those things require teams, organisations and leaders who are capable of working together. And for the sake of everyone that relies on public services, we need to do this more and better across a system that can sometimes feel as though it's designed to prevent that very thing from happening. So I'd like for a moment to take you back to just under a year ago when the Government Declaration on Reform was published in June 2020. If you haven't read it, it's a fantastic read, only 3 pages, but the declaration sets out actions to improve people, performance and partnerships in the civil service, stating that we must do better at providing public servants with the skills and support they need to serve others and find fulfilment in their careers. I don't have to tell you that hard work is essential to building and maintaining a high performance team and environment, and continued professional development is one important way of doing that, more so now than ever before. With recent announcements, as the civil service reduces the size of its workforce and moves toward a new normal following the pandemic and our exit from the EU, it has to equip itself to be even more effective, lean and innovative, and continue to deliver for the communities that we serve. The new Leadership College for Government and its sibling, the College for National Security, have both been established in response to the Declaration's call to action and the integrated review respectively. They're both part of the Government Campus for Skills, which aims to transform training and development across the civil service and provide people with the skills, knowledge and networks they need to be high-performing public servants. So we want to train leaders and managers at every level to take on the most complex challenges and build the skills, knowledge and networks into our new curriculum. This includes completely redesigned management training, which is accessible to every single civil servant, whatever their grade, alongside targeted programs to accelerate the development of our high potential leaders, and revamped induction programs that help newly appointed directors and deputy directors hit the ground running. Engaging with people and perspectives removed from their regular day-to-day experience gives our participants the opportunity to share and expand their skills and gain allies for tackling complex challenges that go beyond their organisations. That's why in the college, we also place a huge emphasis on networking and peer learning events to connect organisations and their leaders, including unique opportunities to hear from some of the most influential and experienced leaders and thinkers across different sectors. In other words, with the right mindset, combining your skills and knowledge with that of other teams and individuals, you become a leader not just of your own team, but one capable of creating high performance systems. And when you in turn support others to flex their skills and knowledge in new ways, when you can challenge each other robustly but respectfully, I believe you will more often than not find a better way and a better solution than you might have managed alone. That's not my opinion, and that's not based on gut instinct, because at the college, we're working with academics and experienced leaders from every sector to understand the evidence and research and identify what goes into successfully pursuing shared goals. The resilience that individuals need to lead teams effectively, how to implement lessons learned from across the system, and how leaders can help their teams navigate those imperfect systems and encourage their reform. In the example I mentioned earlier, the NHS was able to bring in insights and support rapidly thanks to the help of partners and colleagues in defence. And the armed forces might never have known that they were able to help if it wasn't for the belief in their expertise held by colleagues in different places. The point is, different organisations working together can be greater than the sum of their parts. Senior leaders obviously tend to create these opportunities through their connections and their peers. But when I refer to leaders, I'm definitely not just talking about senior managers or Whitehall mandarins. Junior frontline workers who are delivering, designing, and evaluating services right across the country are just as capable of showing leadership if they can spot an opportunity to innovate, cultivate a workable idea, and influence upwards to make real service improvements. As I mentioned, that clear unifying mission can really help. Our research shows that a key factor to creating an environment safe for challenge is clarity of vision and purpose. I think that's why so much happened so quickly during the pandemic. There was one unifying goal. Maintaining that clarity of purpose and channeling the commitment of our people outside of a crisis is the next big challenge for public service leaders. But all leaders need to focus on allowing different ideas, different opinions, and different challenges to be heard and have an impact. Clear, transparent processes and decision-making, incentives that align with the organisation's goals, visible leaders who role model and reward what matters, and I mean what really matters. All of these things shape the behaviours, culture, and outcomes in the teams, organisations, and systems that you work in, and ultimately dictate what happens in the communities that we serve. High-performing teams obviously don't just appear by magic or operate in silos. We need bold systems leadership that eases the way for teams to work together. The best leaders and teams need the right support and a good bit of luck to have the impact that they want. No doubt you've heard the saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. At my college, the aspiration is that we will help our leaders to make their own luck by preparing them to seize those opportunities when they appear. So the real question is, I completely understand, is how to do that. When we talk about high performance, it's really easy to default to thinking about subject matter expertise, wielding influence, getting things done, surmounting the odds, often at a very senior level or in a high pressure environment. At the new college, our mantra is about giving our leaders and managers the skills, knowledge, and networks they need to deliver on behalf of the UK. No doubt you're tired of me saying that already. And we genuinely believe those things are necessary, but I don't believe they're sufficient. There are many factors that contribute to high-performing teams. One of them is behaviours, and that is never more true than in how we respond to being challenged, whether that's as an individual or an organisation. Whether we're in the middle of a crisis or handling slower burning complex issues, we need to embrace candour, feedback, and divergent perspectives. After all, a challenge can lead to an opportunity that a leader, no matter how experienced or high-performing they might be, might not have spotted by themselves. I really do recognise that that is so much more easily said than done. Anyone who's ever led a diverse team will understand the very real challenges of corralling different personalities and perspectives in pursuit of a shared mission or objective, no matter how committed each individual might be. And of course, the more experience you have or the higher up the pecking order you are, the more difficult and sometimes even career-threatening it can feel to acknowledge the value of those different perspectives. That said, I have to say, an ability to cultivate an environment in which people can, thoughtfully and respectfully, express novel or difficult ideas, being able to set aside your ego, having the wisdom and insight to cast off tradition and convention when those things are more of a hindrance than a help, and truly consider those divergent points of view on their merits. All of those things, I believe, are at the heart of any high-performing team. And equipping our leaders with the skills, knowledge, and networks and behaviours to do this well is exactly what the Leadership College for Government is here to do. So, to go back to my initial question, how do we build the leadership and management capability that helps us thrive in difficult times? There's no silver bullet, and there's definitely more than one path towards high-performing teams and systems leadership. Step one is to keep doing exactly what you're doing by attending this conference today. Keep learning and exposing yourself to different ideas, points of view, and ways of doing things. But if I could encourage the people on this call to go just one step further, I would steal the advice of the excellent Matthew Syed to be confident in execution and humble in debrief. I always say that if I'm in a room where I have a monopoly on all the ideas, I'm probably in the wrong room. So that confidence I just mentioned, that confidence should extend to being able to put yourself in someone else's place and listen to what they're trying to say. It's true, their ideas might not always be right, but you'll always be right to listen. Thank you.